I just want to get into a little bit of a deeper dive with Cyndx CEO and founder Jim McVeigh. Jim, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Huge day for LYFT, really exciting. I don't feel like I've seen that much excitement on the floor. This IPO'd at the NASDAQ, but like since Facebook or Twitter. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and this is really the beginning of the run for a lot of great companies that are going to be coming out after it. So I think the excitement that you're feeling with LYFT is a reflection of that also. And I do think just a standalone company, LYFT itself, is a very exciting platform through which you're going to see a lot of innovation and a lot of growth and a lot of transformation. So people should be excited.
Do you think it was a home run when you look at the stock price right now?
I do. If you think about it, you know, they took about 5 to 6% off, and they brought that to the company as opposed to the investors that were coming in early. So it's up about 20%, which would be a normal rise. And you think about the size of it and everything else that was going into this, I think it's fairly priced, and the company got a great deal, and I think investors got a great opportunity also. And
there were some interesting investors in this IPO early on, not necessarily in the IPO, but in the company.
Yes.
For example, General Motors.
Yes. Well, you had General Motors, you had Rakuten, you had a whole bunch of players that wanted to participate. And why did they want to participate? General Motors understood that this could be very transformative to how they're selling cars and how they're, you know, changing the dynamic in terms of people accessing their vehicles. So they wanted to participate. And autonomous driving, they have a big initiative around autonomous driving. They want to be able to participate with the companies that would use it most. And that obviously was LYFT. So that's an important investment for them. People like Rakuten, why do they do it? Because they see the consumer engagement, the ability to bring them incremental services, which will be very valuable to them over time. So you think about all these companies that wanted to partner with these platforms, LYFT or Uber, it's because they see the future opportunity.
It's interesting to me because you look at a company like this, and they had the courage, right? LYFT had the courage to come public before Uber, and many have said that it's not going to impact Uber's IPO. If anything, it revs up the excitement in anticipation. I'm not so sure that I agree with that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, there's clearly a good understanding in the marketplace that Uber is coming and what their metrics look like. And so it's not like any investor is going to be confused when they're making a big bet today from a fundamental perspective. So I think from that perspective, everyone's fully aware. I do think that the market opportunity is so massive that there's room for both to exist. This is not going to be an Amazon or a Google where it's winner take all. These are very local businesses at the end of the day. So New York versus San Francisco versus the others, they're very competitive markets, and the market shares will change dramatically within each of those. So again, I think there's opportunities for both. And when you look at Uber, you know, it's much more of a global play. And so it has a lot more risks in those international markets versus the US market, where when you look at LYFT, it's got 40% market share. That's a pretty dominant position. And if it's a, you know, two-person market, they're almost there.
And there'll be other companies coming public as well.
Absolutely.
That don't have to do with the driving space. For example, Pinterest.
Yes.
I'm wondering just what you think the appetite is in general, and how investors are going to look at allocating capital amongst these big different deals, and how it's going to be redistributed. A lot of analysts are saying, well, it's not new capital coming into the market. It's going to have to come out of somewhere else and move into these names.
Yeah, if you think about it, the capital for, you know, internet companies in and of themselves, a lot of it came out of the market already, and it went to different shareholders or different classes of investors. So if you look at LinkedIn, right, that was taken private by Microsoft. You look at Yahoo/AOL, that was taken in by Verizon. So you look at all these different companies, there's a lot of capital that's come out. So I think there's a huge amount of capital that can come back into it. And when you look also back at the public markets, it's been starved for the last couple of years for these mega caps. So it's not like, you know, it's a one-year phenomenon. You're talking about, you know, over the last 5 to 7 years, you could argue that it's been underserved in terms of the opportunity for public investors.
I just want to point out that you mentioned Verizon. Verizon is the parent company of Yahoo Finance, so we'll make that point. But also, you mentioned the fact that I was talking to Emily about this fact that this is a company that's losing money right now, yet investors are still willing to take a bet on it, and they're willing to believe in it and invest in it. And you make the analogy to Amazon.
Yes.
Look, if you made that bet, you're pretty smart.
I mean, Amazon, Netflix, you can go down the list, and there are a lot of companies that came public and had big losses and losses for many years. And why did people, you know, why were people willing to invest in that? The reason is because they saw revenues doubling, they saw the diversification of services, and when you project it out a couple of years, you can get to profitability. And when you look at LYFT, so LYFT went from 29% market share to 39%, or 22 to 39% market share. So if you reduce the marketing spend from that, you reduce some of the investment in new products and services, you can get to profitability pretty quickly, even if you didn't double revenues, which I think they will.
Jim, great to see you. Have a
Great to be with
wonderful
you.
weekend, and thanks for dropping by.